Good afternoon, or morning, or evening, or whatever time it is that you are joining us. But hello, welcome in. Welcome to our Young Nails live stream today. I'm just getting a couple of table towels cut up here. Not quite sure that I'm going to use them today, but I don't have practice nails that I'm getting ready today. You guys, I don't know if you saw on our Discord channel or not. I always kind of make an announcement on our Discord server what we're going to be doing and what we're going to be working with. So if you didn't see that announcement, you missed out that I'm going to be working on myself today. So I actually redid my nails this week, a couple of days ago, and actually took them off because I was doing a demo for a different class and I had to have my nails taken off. So I did completely remove my nails and then I obviously redid them, but I did save one for you guys today. So we're going to actually be working on my real live nails here. And I'm going to be doing something that I don't normally do a whole lot of. I'm actually going to be using tips today. Now, you guys, I'm going to tell you kind of one of the reasons that it's really hard to demo using tips on the trainer hands. So normally you guys see me working on the trainer hand like this with the fingers on there. But when you're working on the trainer hands, it's kind of challenging to actually apply the tips on those trainer hands. So that's why I don't do a whole lot of demos with those, but you guys, I'm going to use the medium stiletto no-well tips today, and I'm also going to be using our new tip and jewel adhesive to adhere the tip onto my nail. So you guys are going to get kind of a 2-for-1. You get to see a tip application and you get to see me working on myself, which is, you guys, I think a lot of times those are the big requests that we get here on our live channel. I know we do a lot of sculpted nails, we do a lot of acrylics, we do a lot of gels, but today we are going to be using the tips. So let me just give you kind of a quick overview on what I'm going to be using. So again, we've got our medium stiletto no-well tips, and I'll show you those really quickly here. So the no-well tips, I'm not just using these because it's the holidays and we're singing Noel. I know that was my corny joke of the day, but these really don't have a well to them. So you really can, let me sneak in there a little bit, you really can adhere these anywhere onto the nail that you want. So you guys, obviously this is a larger size, but you can glue those right at the free edge. You can put them a little bit farther back, wherever you're comfortable adhering those, but you are the one that's going to decide how much of that nail you're going to glue on, okay? So that's why I love using these no-well tips, because it's really up to you as to how much you put on. So like I said, you could adhere them just right at that free edge, or you could put them a little farther back, whatever you're comfortable with, okay? So those are the medium stiletto no-well tips, and we're going to be using our Young Nails tip and jewel adhesive. I guess we're a little dusty on there, but you guys, the tip and jewel adhesive, I started using this. We obviously just launched this in our mystery box for the Black Friday sale, and I was using it for just adhering gems and stones and things like that. But then, you know, I really started kind of playing around with it and trying it out and working with it, using it with the tips. And you guys, I absolutely love it. It is great for beginners. It's great for skilled technicians. It's great for kind of that DIYer. It's actually really good for those DIYers. When you're working on yourself, you have, you know, this gel that you can see as I'm holding it here. It's not moving. It's not running. So when you're using this to apply those tips, you can get those tips on perfect without any struggles. So you guys are going to love this. If you haven't seen it already, I'm going to show it to you today. And then, of course, we're going to be using some glitters. So today's glitters, and you guys, I'll show you just a quick preview of what we're doing. You guys, I just wanted some really sparkly nails for the holidays, something that I didn't really have to overthink, just a really quick and easy design. So I've got a glitter, kind of a glitter overlay, and then some foils over the top. So the glitters I've got today are, we started off with our, let's see, Waterfall and High Tide. So Waterfall is the larger cut, High Tide is the medium cut of this color. So kind of that silvery kind of color. And then we've also got the, let's see, which one is this? This one is Hope Scream City. And you guys, you're going to notice, let me show you these first two one more time here, but you're going to notice that I'm using different sizes and different cuts of glitter. To me, I like to do that because it kind of gives the nails a little bit more texture, and I like a little bit more of that kind of texture. I don't want to just use one color or one solid cut. I'm going to use all kinds of different ones. So again, a little bit of a larger cut, and then more of a medium-sized cut glitter. And then, let me close those up so I don't spill. And then our Hope Scream City. This one is, Tracy calls these slithers, and I kind of like that term because they're not just a regular rounded or hexagon or how many octagon shaped glitter. They are kind of those longer rectangular kind of threads. So these are really fun to add a little bit more, like I say, texture to your nails. But you can see all of that different color that it's going to reflect. So again, these colors are going to really go well with pretty much anything I'm wearing through the holiday season. And then for just a little bit more iridescent, and this actually has kind of a gold. You kind of see how that color kind of reflects on the side of the jar, kind of that gold, kind of a fiery kind of a look. That's kind of what this color is going to reflect. And whoops, which one was this? Hold on a second. Let me put the cap back on. I'll tell you, this one is Inner Child. You guys, we have so many glitters, I can't keep the names of them straight. So forgive me for having to look at the labels to see what the names of the colors are. But again, you kind of see that gold tone to it. It looks like there's a little bit of blue to it, but honestly, it doesn't really reflect that blue once it's on the nail. So you can kind of see, again, we get more of that kind of that gold tone underneath there. Okay. And then our last glitter that we've got is Six Figure Fox. And this is kind of a fun one because I would say it's a medium kind of a cut glitter. And this one has a little bit more of that silver, a little bit more of the gold to it, but then it also does have that reflective hologram to it. So really, really fun kind of a combination with all of these different glitters. So that is what we're going to be using. And you guys, of course, we're going to be using one of my favorites. You guys all know, if you've been watching my live streams for a while, you know that one of my favorite products to use is our Jewel Foil Kit. You can tell I've used this quite a bit. The case is a little bit tore up here, but the product inside is still fantastic. So we're going to be using the green and the red from this. So those are kind of the basics that we're going to be using today. So let me actually get into our nail, because I know that's what you guys really want to see. So we're going to start with prepping. Just like we do on the trainer hand, just like we do all of the time, I'm going to start with my magic wand, and I'm just going to come in and push back my cuticles. Now, you guys, I've kind of cleaned up my nails earlier in the week, so my cuticles aren't terribly rough. They don't really need a whole lot of work, but really all I'm going to do is just gently push that cuticle back. Okay, so just kind of loosening up that skin in the back there. If I need to, I can use that little kind of scraper edge to get right up around that cuticle area. But I'm not going to spend a ton of time trying to get that perfect, because we're going to come in with our E-file. Now, when I'm working on my nails personally, I love using the diamond, hold on one second, let me clean this up here, the diamond cuticle square bit. And this one works great on a natural nail, whether you're doing prep for your enhancements or even just a gel manicure. This one works awesome right up around that cuticle area. It's very gentle, so you don't have to worry about it cutting the skin or anything. Let me even turn this on. I'm going to turn my E-file onto about 5,000 RPMs. And even just on my skin here, you guys, let me come back out just a little bit. So even on my skin, you can see I'm kind of using a little bit of pressure, even using kind of the edge of that bit. It's not going to damage, okay? It's a very gentle bit, but I absolutely love this one for working around the cuticle area, because I feel like this gets right up in there that sometimes you can't quite get all the way in there with that sanding band. So this one, I love it because it's going to get right in there, especially on maybe clients, or if you've got some extra tough cuticles, maybe even if you're a nail biter, this works really well for getting that whole cuticle area nice and clean. So you can kind of see, if I dust this off, you can see how nice and clean that area is. I've got just a little bit right back up in that corner, and I kind of want to just kind of tickle that away a little bit. making sure that I do get all of that dead protein growth off the nail. Now you guys see how right up in this corner I said I have a little bit more to kind of clean off there. I don't just go all the way around that cuticle again. I do kind of that feathering motion. So just kind of feather, 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 or as Greg says, tickle, 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 just to kind of gently remove that last little bit. If I need to, let me come around here. I can do that same kind of thing over on the other side, any last little bits that I need to remove. Now you guys, you can use this bit to go through and prep that whole nail surface if you want to, if you feel comfortable with that. I usually will do kind of around my cuticles using this bit, but then I actually will switch back to my sanding band. I like the sanding band to prep the rest of the surface of the nail. For me, it just kind of feels like a better, I don't know, a better smoothness, I guess. So I'm going to put a brand new sanding band in. I always tell you guys, make sure that you're changing out your sanding bands. Get a clean one for every service, whether it's on yourself or whether it's on your clients. Always change out your sanding bands. Get a clean one for every service. By getting a clean one, you're also getting a fresh grit. So when you have that new bit, let me show you guys the old one. When you have that new bit, you have really good grit to that sanding band. When you have an old bit, it's kind of worn down and maybe not quite so textured. So you always want to make sure that you're using good, a good new bit. So I've already kind of gone up around my cuticle area, so I don't necessarily need to do a ton of work through there, but I am going to go through and just kind of gently remove the shine from the rest of that nail surface. Now you guys, I'm just making contact with the nail and then kind of doing that feathering technique. I'm not using a lot of pressure. Actually, I'm not using any pressure, just basically making contact and feathering through. Somebody's asking in the chat, what grit is this? You guys, this is a medium sanding band. It's about a 150 grit, which is just like the files, our hand files that I'm going to be using. Okay, so 150 grit, medium sanding band, that's what I'm calling it. All right, we're going to dust our nail off, get all of that dust cleaned off of there, get any little dust particles out of those sidewalls, right down around there, any dust up through that cuticle area, get all that nice and clean. And then I'm going to grab my swipe, and we're going to use the swipe to cleanse the nail. So I'm going to pump a little bit of that swipe onto my manicure brush. We're going to come in and give that nail a really good scrub all the way through. That swipe is going to clean off any extra oils that might still be hanging around on that nail surface. It's also going to kind of clean off any germs or bacteria that are still on that nail. So again, we're going to just let that swipe dry. Do you see how my nail itself and then also the skin around there looks a little bit on the dry side? That's exactly what we want to do. We want a nice, clean, dry, pH balanced surface. And you'll notice that even right down here, kind of along the side area, there's still just a little bit of that swipe. I want to make sure that that's nice and completely dry before I go on to my next step. Somebody's asking, is there a reason to use coarse sanding bands? You guys, I actually don't use coarse sanding bands at all, especially on the natural nail. A coarse sanding band is going to be way too aggressive on a natural nail, and you definitely don't want to do that, okay? So the medium is just fine. All right, so our nail is nice and clean and dry. I'm going to grab my protein bond. Protein bond is our bonder, and this is what's going to really help everything adhere well. So for now, we're going to be putting a tip on, so I'm really just going to put my protein bond right towards the free edge. I don't really need to go all the way back to that cuticle area. So just going to apply about halfway up the nail or wherever I think I'm going to adhere my tip. So maybe I might go just a little farther back, just in case. But we're going to actually do another application of the protein bond after we get the tip on. I am going to do 2 coats of protein bond. You guys, 1 coat is probably going to work just fine, but anytime I'm using a hard gel, or I'm actually doing our tip adhesive, which is a soft gel, but I just like to have just that little extra durability. So we're going to grab our tips. You guys, I'm going to size out my tip. And when you're working with the no-well tips, like I was saying earlier, you can adhere them however, wherever you want, but you still have to make sure that they're going to fit that nail. So I'm going to check my nails, and I'm going to look, let me come in a little closer for you. And we're going to size out our nail from sidewall to sidewall. So from sidewall over here all the way to the sidewall on the other side. And we want to make sure that that tip is going to fit the C-curve properly first, and then from sidewall to sidewall. So if you kind of take a look, the C-curve is this curve here. So if I turn that tip, if I take my tip, kind of turn it around so that I can compare those C-curves, I want to make sure that those are going to fit. Now, if you have nails that are a little bit flatter, you may need to size out to a bigger size tip and then customize it down on the sides. So if I grab a bigger size tip here, sorry, sticking together, you'll be able to see that through that C-curve, do you see how it's looking a little bit flatter right up through here than on the more narrow one? So on this one, on the smaller size here, it's got more of a curve. On here, it's a little flatter through here and then curved down onto those sides. So on a flatter nail, you may have to take this larger size to fit that C-curve properly and then file off the edges to fit from sidewall to sidewall. I hope that makes sense. You guys put a little thumbs up into the chat if that made sense to you. If you're thinking, oh yeah, that makes sense to me, put the little thumbs up or something in the chat so I know. So again, we're going to size out our nail. So this one is looking pretty good to me. It's fitting my C-curve nicely. It's looking like it fits all the way from my sidewall. So right down here, down to that sidewall down on the side there, and then all the way over to that other side. Okay, good. I'm seeing lots of thumbs up in the chat. That helps me to know that that made sense to you. So fantastic. All right. So this is a size, I think that's a size 6. Let's see, I'm going to check just a smaller size just to make sure that it's the right size. And okay, so this one is the next size smaller. Now you guys, if you take a look at this one I really, let me see if you can see from the side here. This one I really have to kind of press down. You can almost see it kind of pushing in on the sides of my nail. You can kind of see that from the side there. That one's going to be too small. Because I have to use that extra pressure to put that down, it's going to kind of flare out that tip, and I don't want that tip to flare. I just want it to set nicely right down onto that nail. Okay, so I think we're going to go with the bigger size. I may end up customizing this one a little bit, but I'm actually going to wait until I've got that nail on, adhered on. Now, when you're using the tip and jewel adhesive, this is a thicker product, so you want to make sure that you're sizing that tip out just a little bit bigger to kind of compensate for that little extra thickness underneath it when you're gluing that on, okay? All right, so we are going to grab, oops, sorry guys, I'm trying to find my other stuff here. Okay, so because this is a no-well tip and we're using gel to adhere it, we need to remove the shiny surface from the center of this tip. So that underneath side, so we take a look, I'm going to turn that over. I'm going to use that sanding band again. And we're just going to go through and just gently, I still have my speed on about 5,000 RPMs. I'm just going to go through that well and remove the shine. Now, you guys, this is a really important step when you're using the tip and adhesive or tip and jewel adhesive, because this will not stick to that shiny surface. So if you skip this step, if you forget to remove that shine from the center of that well, your nail is not going to adhere and it's going to pop right off. Okay, so always make sure you go through, remove that shine, and then I'm just going to dust off any of that extra dust. Okay. All right, so a couple of things here. I've got my tip and jewel adhesive. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to use my dual-ended brush and spatula. So this one has a brush on one end, a gel brush on one end, and then it has the little spatula on the other. So I'm actually going to use the spatula end. And then also, you guys, what I have set out here is my Touch Cure curing lamp. Okay, so this is, I'm going to set my gels off to the side here. This is a great lamp that you can just individually cure that one finger, and you don't have to worry about putting it all the way into the light. So this is going to make our life a little bit easier today. Okay, so that's what I've got out here. And just going to grab a little bit of that gel from the pot here and just take a little scoop. So again, using my spatula. Now you don't need a lot of this. And I'm just going to, let me come in a little bit. Just going to kind of set that right down into the well. I'm just going to kind of spread that out from side to side, making sure that I've got enough of that gel in there. Now, we're going to apply this to the nail. Now, you guys, this is the great part about this gel is you can get that nail on there and it's not going to move. So when I let go of that, it's not going anywhere. It's not moving anywhere. I can really get this tip situated exactly where I want it. So you guys, I'm going to show you something here really quickly. So when you're using this, I do kind of come in at a slight angle, either angling this way or angling this way and rocking that nail down. So that way what's going to happen is it's going to press out any air bubbles that might be kind of set underneath there. So I'm just kind of rocking that down. I'm going to turn my nail around and I'm going to look straight at it this way. And I'm going to adjust. Make sure that it's nice and straight. Make sure that it's going all the way from sidewall to sidewall. And I think it looks good there. Looks good on my sides. Let me come in and show you guys here. So it looks good on the sides. I did get just a little bit of product on my skin. I want to make sure I clean that off my skin. And again, we'll check that other side, clean that off the skin there. You guys really try hard to not get that gel on the skin, but if you accidentally do, just make sure to clean it off before you cure, okay? All right, I think we're good. Everything's looking nice and straight from both angles. Now I'm going to cure this. So let me come out and show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to turn my little curing light on. I've got about, I would say maybe 10 inches or so between my nail and the light. I'm just going to tap that light on and I'm going to keep my nail kind of right under where that light is. Notice I'm not putting it directly up under here. If I were to put that right up under the light like that, it's going to cure it really quickly and I'm going to feel heat on that nail. Okay, so that's why I'm going to keep my nail a little farther away, so it's going to slowly cure this. And then as it cures, I can come up a little bit closer and things like that to cure it just a little bit more. But that's really just going to set that nail into place. So now it's not going to move. But what I am going to do is I'm actually going to get this into the light. And I am going to cure this. Let me turn my light on here. Let me see, make sure you guys can see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to get that nail into the light and we're going to cure this. Now, normally I would cure this for a full 60 seconds, but you guys, for today, I'm just going to cure it for a quick 30-second freeze, and then we'll move on to our next step. 30 seconds is going to be enough to set this into place, and then I can move on. But if you're working on a full set, I definitely recommend doing a full 60-second cure on that, okay? Now, at this time, once the nail comes out, it's cured on there. It's good where it's at. It's not going to go anywhere. So we're going to trim this down. Now, you guys, you can see I'm definitely not wearing long stilettos these days. I have too much going on for the holidays. I can't be wearing those long, crazy nails. So I'm just going to clip this nail a little bit shorter. Let me come in a little closer here. So yeah, somebody says you only need to apply the tip on the free edge. Yes, you guys, I could have applied the tip all the way down to that free edge. I like how these fit on my nails a little bit farther back. I feel like they get right up into that lower arch a little bit better, but you can definitely apply them right at the tip of the nail, okay? All right, so again, we're just gonna trim this a little bit shorter, and I'm going to check this. So when I check the length of my nails, this is just me personally. You guys, if you have different ideas on how you like your length, you can have different lengths and things like that. But I check my lengths from the 3 middle fingers. I want those to be about the same length. And then my thumb and my pinky can just be kind of proportionate. So right now I'm going to compare this one and I'm going to measure from the cuticle to the free edge. A lot of times I see people trying to measure their length from underneath and they try to measure this and compare those. But you guys, here's the thing. My nail bed on this nail may be this long. My nail bed on this nail may be a little bit shorter. So if I'm only measuring what my extension is, my nails aren't going to be even, okay? So that's why I'm measuring pretty much from my cuticle area to the end of the nail. So cuticle area to the end of the nail. So if I line those cuticle areas up nice and even, you can see that this one is just a little bit longer, just a tiny little bit. I could trim that a little bit, and maybe I'll just take off that little point at the end there. But I am going to do some filing and shaping, so I'm not going to worry too much about that length at this point. But I did trim that down to give me kind of just an idea of where I'm going to be. Okay. Now, I'm going to grab my e-file again. I am going to switch to my safety bit. You guys, when I'm working on myself, I prefer to use the safety bit. If you watch a lot of our demos here, a lot of times you guys will see me using the X-cut bit with that flat top. But when I'm working on myself, I don't always have the perfect balance that I would be able to have when I'm working on a real client. So I want just a little bit more safety with my filing here. So that's why I choose the safety bit on myself. Okay. So we're going to take a look at this nail. So we've got, let's see if you can come in here. So we've got a little bit of a ledge right up here. And if you do have any of that gel that squeezes out, that's okay. We're going to go through and we're going to file that down and blend that in. Okay. So again, I'm using my safety bit. Now here's the thing, you guys, I'm turning this up to about 10,000 RPMs. Now I'm going to try to get the best view here for you guys. It's tricky to work on my own nails and get you in camera here, so I'm going to do the best that I can on that. But when you're going through and thinning this out and kind of blending in that tip to that natural nail, you want to make sure that you're only filing over the tip. I don't want that bit to ever come up and touch that natural nail because I don't want to cause any damage. Okay, I don't know if you guys saw, but when I had just my natural nail here, I've had my gels on for, you guys, I've had gels on for years now, and I will remove the product from time to time to kind of change out my designs and things like that. But you notice that my nail wasn't damaged. I didn't have those little red spots. I didn't have really any damage at all. And that's because I never do a lot of filing on that natural nail. I will only use that sanding band to kind of prep that natural nail, but that damage comes from over filing. Okay, so again, notice that I'm only keeping my bit on that plastic. I'm just kind of thinning out that plastic a little bit, and we're going to kind of blend that down into that natural nail. Okay, once I've got that thinned out, I think maybe I can take down just a little bit more here. Just gently making contact with the bit, kind of pulling all the way across there, just in little kind of shorter strokes. You can do that same kind of feathering motion, but you guys make sure that if you're feathering that you are still moving that bit across. You're not just feathering in the same spot over and over, but working across that nail and across that seat. Okay, so you can start to see that my nail is starting to blend in. I've got just a little bit more to go. I'm going to switch back to my sanding band now. So we're going to put that sanding band back in. I'm going to turn my speed down just a little bit. So maybe we're at about 7,000 or 8,000 RPMs. And here's where I am going to do a little bit more of that feathering right through to make sure that all of that nail, all of that tip is blended in. Now, the tip itself looks like it's blended in, but I do have a little bit of that adhesive, that gel kind of back through the body of the nail. I'm just going to feather through that. I'm not necessarily trying to remove it, but I'm just trying to remove the shine from it. Okay? When you're working with gels, any shine is going to cause you issues. Okay? Even though that was the gel underneath there, I still want to go through and remove that shine up there. Also on the free edge here, I definitely want to make sure I'm going through and completely removing the shine from that. Oops, I've got a little edge there. Completely removing the shine from that free edge, so that way when I do put my gel on here, it's going to adhere really well. If you forget to completely remove that shine, your gel is probably going to lift and separate and peel away from that tip. Okay, so make sure that you are removing the shine. I'm just going to use my e-file here to kind of shape up that nail just a little bit more. This is kind of one of the tricks that works for me, to do a little bit of shaping so that I don't have to do quite so much with my hand file, but just kind of a little rough shaping there. Okay, so again, making sure all that shine is removed, that tip is blended in, and I think we are good to go with our application. Okay, before we actually apply any gel, I'm going to dust off that nail. And you guys, if you want to, you can go through and kind of pre-shape this. Let's go ahead and do that, just because I can see I've got a little bit of my lower arch kind of hanging. You see this little, sorry guys, I'm trying to get the right angle here. There we go. We've got a little bit of that tip kind of hanging down there. I'm just going to come in and just kind of straighten that up a little bit. Now again, you guys, you don't have to do this, but I find that it's just a little bit easier in my final finishing if I give myself just a little bit of that preliminary shape. Now, you don't have to make it completely perfect because you are going to be doing some kind of filing and finishing at the end, and you don't want to over file. So make sure that you're not filing off too much on that side or too much on those lower arches. You still want to have a little bit of filing to do once you get to that point, okay? We're going to dust off the nail one more time here. Get that nice and clean, get any dust out from underneath as well. Now, here's the thing, you guys. We did have protein bond on this nail, and you can see right up through here, you can see a little bit of that protein bond. We didn't protein bond that whole nail all the way back here because I want to do one more quick cleanse of this nail. As we've been working, I may have been touching the nail, putting a little bit of oils on them, or maybe even a little bit of germs or bacteria. Hopefully I don't have germs and bacteria, but we do want to go through and cleanse this nail one more time. Now, when you're cleansing, keep in mind that our swipe that we're using to cleanse does have acetone to it. We just took the time and effort to remove all of that shine from that nail. If we use our swipe over the rest of this free edge, it's basically that acetone in the swipe is going to kind of re-soften and smooth out that free edge. So when we're doing our swipe, you guys, normally you see me use the swipe on my brush and cleanse the whole nail. This time I'm going to take one of our lint-free wipes. I've got a little bit of swipe on the lint-free wipe. I'm just going to fold that over, and let me come in a little closer so you can see. I'm going to come in right over that natural nail and just cleanse that natural nail, okay? That way I'm going to get all of the dust and contaminants off of that natural nail, but I'm not getting that swipe onto that free edge. Swipe it's like I said, it has acetone to it. So again, that acetone could smooth out that free edge. Also, if you really kind of scrubbed it or had too much of the swipe or too much acetone on that nail, it can actually make that tip crack. So make sure that you're only cleansing that natural nail area again. Don't get that swipe and scrub through that free edge, okay? So make sure on that. And somebody says, I always forget to double tap to like until someone reminds me. Is that my cue to remind you guys? Make sure that you do subscribe to our channel if you're enjoying the lesson today. If you're learning some things, hit that little red subscribe button. Join our community. We appreciate it. And thank you, Biba, for the reminder. All right, you guys, so we're going to go back to our protein bond because now we have that nice clean dry surface again. We're going to use our protein bond to really help our, we're using gel today, to help our gel bond to that natural nail. So I'm going to start right in the center like I always do. I'm going to brush back up to that cuticle area, and then I'm going to brush all the way down through that extension. So all the way onto the tip, we're going to get that protein bond, okay? I am going to do 2 coats. Anytime I'm doing acrylic or hard gel, I always use 2 coats of our protein bond to really get that great adhesion. And I'm getting as close as I can up into that cuticle area without touching, okay? That's the challenge, you guys. Protein bond works like an anchor. So wherever you get your protein bond, that's where it's going to pull your product to. If I went and I slopped up my, my protein bond onto my cuticle area, that's where my gel is going to really kind of be attracted to. So I want to make sure I'm leaving, and I don't know if you can even see this. Let me see if I can get in really, really close. But there is just a tiny, tiny little hairline of space all the way around that natural nail that I don't have any protein bond. Now, you guys, it looks really magnified on camera here, but it's really just the width of my orange wood stick. Okay, I want to leave that little bit of space with my protein bond. I want to leave that little bit of space with my gel, because that way your product is going to have a really good bond to that natural nail, and it's not going to try to adhere to that cuticle area. Okay, so make sure you always want to leave just that micro little line right around that natural nail, right around that cuticle. Sissy, we're not at top coat. We are not anywhere near top coat. You guys, we have a whole application of gel to do here. So I know if you guys are excited about seeing the final look, that is great. But we still got gel and we still got glitter to apply. So let's get into that. So I'm going to start with our base gel. And you guys, we always start with the base gel on the natural nail. This is what's going to have the best bond to that natural nail. I don't want to just start in with any of my builder gels or sculpting gels because these don't have as much of the resins as our base gel does, okay? Base gel has more resins to bond to the keratin protein in your nail. So you want to make sure that you're always starting with that. Okay, I'm going to grab my Pro Gel Sculptor number 5, take that little cap off, and I'm just going to kind of drag my brush right across the surface of that gel, lift up, tap off that little bit of string, and then we're going to brush on. You guys can see there's not a lot of product on my brush right now, just enough to brush on a nice thin coat. And again, I start a little ways away from that cuticle area and just kind of work back, just kind of putting some pressure and then brushing that forward. Okay, this is going to give us that nice thin application. It's going to bond really well to that natural nail. It's going to bond really well to that tip extension that we glued on here. And nice and even coat. You guys, no structure. I don't really have any structure built up at this point. You can definitely see that little ledge between my natural nail and the tip, but you don't see that line where the tip kind of starts and stops because we did a good job blending, okay? Now at this point, you could go back to using, oops, let me see if I can get in camera. So you could use that Touch Cure Light again to freeze that base into place. I'm going to actually put this into our light here. Let me get my camera. Whoops. I just dinged my nail here trying to move the camera. Hang on, you guys. Just going to kind of touch that back up, and then we'll get this back into our light. We're going to do another 30-second freeze. Let me make sure my timer's on there. Okay. You guys, it's hard to stay in the camera, but behind the camera and make sure I get all of the buttons pushed and everything. So we did do a 30-second timer on our light here. So that's going to stay in there for 30 seconds, freeze that base layer into place, and then we will go on to our glitters. So again, you guys, the glitters that I'm going to be using are High Tide. Here, let me come in a little closer here. All right, so we got High Tide. We've got Waterfall. Okay, our nail is done curing for the 30 seconds. So let me open these up as I go. So High Tide, Waterfall, we've got Inner Child. Hopefully all of the inner childs are having fun playing with nails today. We've also got Six Figure Fox. So hopefully you guys that are working with nails are making the six figures. That's always an inspiration. And we've got Hope Scream City. I don't have anything fun to say about Hope Scream City other than it's a gorgeous glitter. So, all right, so we're going to do another coat of our base. So that same base gel that we were using on the last step. I'm going to do another thin coat of this. Let me come in a little closer. There we go. So we're going to do another thin coat of this. This one I'm not going to use as much pressure. I'm not really putting pressure onto the brush. On the first coat, I used a little bit more pressure with my brush. With this one, I want to leave a little bit of a thicker layer, but I'm still not trying to build up thickness or structure. I just want a nice even coat for my glitters to adhere into. And I'm going to grab just one of my older brushes. It's kind of frayed out, but I really like brushes that are frayed out for this application because I'm just going to dip that into my glitter, and then we're going to kind of tap that into that nail. And with a kind of frayed out brush like this, you're going to be able to pick up a little bit more of those glitters, and just going to kind of set those into that tacky layer. And you guys, there is really no rhyme or reason to how I'm putting these in. I'm just kind of filling in the space. So let me come in a little closer. You can kind of see as I work here. So just kind of tapping my brush into the glitters and then onto the nail, and wherever it sticks, it sticks. You can definitely see I do get a little bit of that glitter and a little bit of that gel kind of stuck in my brush. I'm not going to worry about that either. I'll show you what I'll do at the end. But again, just kind of adding all of my different glitters, just like I said, filling in space. All right, just going to kind of go through any little pieces that are kind of poking off the sides. I'm going to kind of clean those up, tuck those back in. If there's anything hanging out around the cuticle area, I'm going to grab my orange wood stick and clean that out from around the cuticle area. I don't want any of that glitter getting up to the cuticle area. I want to make sure that I don't have any gel up touching that cuticle area or those side walls. And once I have that, oh, you guys, look at that sparkle. Are we loving it? Let me know if you're loving it. Put a little heart in the chat if you're loving the glitter here today. So on this one, I am going to use that Touch Cure light again. Come back out here. This one's just going to be nice and easy, again, to kind of freeze that gel into place, freeze that glitter into place. And again, you can see I'm holding my light a little ways away. I'm not going right up underneath it like that. If I did go right up under there, it would cure that gel really, really fast, and I would probably feel a little bit of a heat spike. So I want to just kind of keep my hand, keep that nail a little ways away from the light, but still you can kind of see. Let me come in a little closer here. You can kind of see where that little pink outline of the light is. You want to keep your finger right in that outline. You know, don't put it outside the light because it's not going to cure then. So just keep it right inside there, maybe for 10, 15, 20 seconds or so, however long. I guess if you're doing yourself, you're doing your own nails here, it's hard to, you know, do more than one nail at a time, but about 10 to 20 seconds or so, and then we're good to go. All right, so let's do a second coat just to really make sure, because if we didn't have enough glitter, we can make sure to add in a little bit more glitter. So I'm going to go back to my base gel. So we're just going to basically repeat that same process. So we're going to pick up the base gel. We're going to brush on another thin layer. Again, not trying to build up structure, just trying to give ourselves a tacky surface to adhere our gel into. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. Grab our little art brush, adding those glitters anywhere we feel like we need a little extra sparkle. Now you guys, in between, I'm not sure if you can see this, all I'm doing is just kind of swirling my brush around, and that's going to pull out any of those chunks of glitter. So that way I can go back into my other glitters here and pick up other bits and pieces. Just a quick, easy way to clean out your brush. And again, just kind of tapping through, just adding a little bit more of each color, filling in space, and kind of check all the way around. Sometimes you kind of miss those little edges. And I usually like to use those finer glitters, those smaller pieces right around those sides. So I'm using, which one was this? High Tide? I believe that was High Tide, just to kind of make sure I got good coverage kind of around those edges. Okay. All right, I think we're looking pretty good here. Maybe just a little bit more of that one. You guys, I always do that. I always say, we're looking good, I like that, but then I got to add just a little bit more. So just a little bit more here and there. And you guys, too much glitter is not a thing. I don't believe in there being ever too much glitter. Unless you're mixing it into your acrylics or gels, and then your consistency may be off. But when you're putting it onto the nail like this, never too much glitter. Okay, so we're going to go back under our Touch Cure light here again. So again, we're going to be right underneath that little light area, that little light circle right there. I'm going to close up my glitters. And once we kind of set this into place, then we're going to be able to sculpt out the rest of our nail and build up the structure to this. But all I'm doing right now is just freezing that layer of glitter into place, and then we can go on to our next layer. But you guys, always close up your glitters after you're done using them. I don't know how many times I've done it, but I've spilled glitters unintentionally. So close them up so you don't accidentally knock something over, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and close that last one up. Now, I'm going to do an optional step, and I don't always do this, but sometimes when I'm using the big chunky glitters like this, I like to kind of seal them. So I'm going to do one more coat of the base, Again, you could go in right into your building gels, right into your Build Pink or your Clear Sculptor, but I'm going to do just one more coat of the base, and I'm going to get really close to that cuticle area to kind of seal in those glitters right around the edge. Because sometimes when I'm using the sculpting gels or the building gel, I may not get as close as I need to, and so this kind of will just seal everything around the edges and start to give me the proper structure around the edge. So again, just a thin little coat in there. Again, we'll pop this right under our Touch Cure light for another 10 to 20 seconds or so, making sure we're right in that little circle of light. All right, and then as it cures, you can definitely bring it up a little bit closer to the light. So bring it up a little bit higher if you want to maybe make sure that it cures all the way or something like that. So again, you can bring it all the way up there, but I do start with it a little bit lower down there so I don't get that big heat spike, okay? All right, next gel we are going to use is our Build Pink. You guys, like I said, you could use the Build Pink, you could use the Clear Sculptor, you could use Build, whatever you want to use, whatever works for you. I like using the Build Pink because that little bit of a pink tint in here really helps to kind of magnify those glitters. So I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of that out right up by my cuticle area. I actually have to back off my little squeezy tool down here. As you can see, it's like what you use for your toothpaste. Just that little squeezy. It was a little too tight on there. And now my gel is running all over the place here. So let me come back in with my brush. Come in a little closer so you see what I'm doing. So a little bit of that gel kind of ran down the side as I was chasing my tube here. So we'll just take a little bit more of that Build Pink, and we're just going to go through and encapsulate all of this glitter. I'm just going to grab my brush here. And again, you guys, just kind of using the brush, bringing that product nice and close to my cuticle area without touching the cuticle. See how I've got my finger angled downward? I'm not sure, maybe you can't see. So I got my finger angled downward like this so that all of that gel is going to flow towards the end of the nail rather than back up into my cuticle area. I want to make sure that that product isn't flowing into the cuticle because I want to make sure it's got good tight adhesion to that natural nail. Okay, we're going to turn that light back on another time. Just enough to kind of set that and kind of freeze it into place. Another thing that you can do is if you don't want to set it just right down on the table like that, let me see if I can bring this in a little closer here. Let me get a better view for you guys. So something else you can do is maybe even starting maybe about 4 inches or so away, you can just kind of bring that nail in and out of the light. See if you can see that. So in and out of the light. Again, if you're going too close and curing that too fast or kind of keeping that light solid on there right up close, it's gonna get a heat spike. So going kind of in and out of the light, that's gonna help to avoid that heat spike. Or like I said, just keep the finger right down on the table, and that's gonna be enough to kind of just freeze that into place. So at this point, the nail is it's hard, but it's not completely cured out. So the reason that I wanted to just freeze this into place is I want to check my structure. Let me come in here a little bit. So if we take a look at this nail now, I see I actually have pretty decent structure in here already. I don't know that I'm needing to add any more product onto that. I think if I did add any more product, I would probably have just a lot more filing to do. But at this point, I think I've got proper thickness. I've got enough structure, enough thickness in my cuticle area. I've got a little bit thicker right through here in the arch and nice and kind of tapered down to that free edge. So you guys, I'm really not going to have a whole lot of filing to do, okay? So just a little bit to kind of clean everything up, put everything into shape, and we'll be good. So at this point, I am going to fully cure this in my light now. So I'm going to go into the full UV LED light, and I turn my timer on for 60 seconds here. Oops, let me hit that again. So 60 seconds. So that's going to cure fully in the light. Now, you guys, a couple of things. There's not really a whole lot I can do at this point because I'm down to one hand. But a lot of times, once I'm done with the nails and they're curing, I'll go through, clean off my gel applicator here, clean out my brushes, things like that. So that way your station's going to go back to nice and clean and organized. And that way when you go to do your filing, everything's going to be nice and clean. Okay. I'm just going to use, I have just a little ceramic tile here, something you can get cheap at the hardware store, not a big deal. I'm going to use that to clean out my brush. So let me come in a little closer here. So I'm just going to use that to kind of wipe my brush on, pull out some of that extra gel that's in my brush, and get that nice and clean. Now with my gel brush, I always leave a little bit of gel in it. I don't ever completely wipe that out, but then you can kind of see I kind of tuck those bristles back into a little bit of a point to kind of get them to come back together. Okay, then my nail's cured. But then I'll put my brush cap on so that my brush always stays nice and clean, especially when you're doing your filing. You always want to make sure that you're keeping your brush clean so that you don't get any dust in there. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of swipe, or you can use polish remover, acetone, clean off that tile, because we're going to be using that in just a little bit as well. Now, once the nail is cured, let me come back in here. It does cure with a tacky surface to it. So we're going to grab a little bit more of our swipe. So same thing that we've been using since the beginning. Take a little bit of swipe on our lint-free wipe. And then we're going to take that and cleanse that nail. So you guys, let me come out here. Let me see if I can show you the proper, whoops. All right, I guess I can't come back out any farther. But I'm going to put that little wipe on my nail and pull that tacky surface off the end. And then I do fold that wipe over again, and then I give that nail another wipe. Because what this is going to do is it's going to pull all of that tacky surface off of the nail. That tacky surface is uncured gel. And if you were to just kind of come in, let me just grab a dry wipe here. If you were to just come in and just start to kind of scrub that back and forth, that's actually going to push that uncured gel onto the skin. Okay, so we always want to keep product off of our skin. So if you're coming in there and just scrubbing that nail, you're going to get that tacky uncured gel on the skin, okay? So that's why I always start here, pull forward, fold that wipe in half, do a second cleanse to make sure that everything is nice and clean and there's no more tacky surface to it, okay? All right, I'm going to grab my dust collector. And let me get that in the middle here. All right, so we've got our dust collector here. I'm going to turn that on to all the way up to 10. And I'm going to grab my safety bit. So this is my safety bit Coarse. Just same one that I was using for blending that tip. Okay. This time we're going to turn our speed on to about 14 to 16,000. I'd say about 14 to 15,000 RPMs. Okay, turn that on. I'm going to turn my dust collector on. Now, I've got a pretty good shape, you guys. We already did kind of that preliminary shaping with our file on the tip before we even applied our gel. So I don't really need to do a lot of filing. If I need to, I can come straight down those sides, clean up those sides, make my little U-turn around the end, come back, push up on the right side, come back in here. Okay, so again, you can come and clean that up. Now you guys, as I'm filing, I always want to make sure that I'm not just looking from this view. I turn my own nails around and I look from this view as I'm working, because when I look from here, it may look straight, but my fingers are actually crooked. My nails actually kind of curve off to the side a little bit. So I want to make sure that when I'm filing, I am filing these nice and straight. Okay, so this is something that I do on myself, is I will actually file from this view. So all I'm doing, I'm kind of balancing with these fingers here. So my ring finger and my pinky, I balance on my pointer finger, and I'm just going to kind of pull up that right side. And I don't actually do that on the left side here. I don't actually do that on the right side. I mean, I guess you could. So you can definitely come up that right side there. So again, just kind of either side to straighten those out. Okay. Then we're going to work, let me readjust here. We're going to work right around that cuticle area. So just around that cuticle. And again, you guys, this is where the safety bit comes in handy. Because it does have that rounded top, it's not going to cut the skin, it's not going to hurt, it's not going to damage. So if you get a little bit close up in there, you can see I'm actually just almost touching, even touching that cuticle area. It's not going to damage my cuticle. Okay, so I'm just coming around that cuticle area, kind of thinning, tapering out, making sure that I don't have a big ledge in the back there. And then, all right, you guys, I'm going to have to come back out here so you can see. Okay, so I'm going to work from the side view. We're just going to come right down that arch, tapering that arch down, making sure everything is contouring. So I'm going from thin and tapered at the cuticle, a little bit thicker here in my stress area, thin and tapered down at my free edge. And you guys notice the angle of my bit. I'm actually going to turn this off for just a second. I'm actually going to move that so we can get a better view here. There we go. So as I'm working, notice the angle of my bit. So when I'm working at that cuticle area, my bit is kind of at a slight downward angle. So working around the cuticle here, I'm using about the top 2/3 of my bit. You can actually see where that filing dust is. So all the way through here, that's the area of the bit that's making contact with that nail. I'm going to come into the center. So I went from kind of that downward angle to a little bit more flat right through here. And you can see I'm using more of probably the center third of the bit. So right through there. And then when I come to the free edge, I angle with that bit pointing upward. So this way you're going to always keep that arch kind of in mind as you're filing. Okay, so follow the contour that you're trying to create by angling your bit. Okay. All right, again, you guys make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, join our community, just that little red button. And again, we're just going to come through that arch, tapering that down just a little bit. And then I'm going to look down the barrel, excuse me, down the barrel of the nail. And I'm going to use the top part of my bit to pull through that left side, up into the middle of my bit in the center, and down to the base of my bit on the right side. Okay, just tapering in those sides, getting a nice contour, getting everything nice and tapered in, making sure that there's no bulk on those edges all the way through. Okay, I'm just going to pull all the way through here one more time just to make sure everything looks even. And you guys notice when I do come down onto those sides, I actually bring my bit pretty far down on the side. Okay, I'm not just stopping here. By coming all the way through that side, that's really going to taper in those edges. Same thing on my right side here. Use the base of the bit, taper in that edge, get that nice and tight, nice and contoured, nice and rounded all the way through. Okay. All right, I'm just going to check one last time from that side view, and I think we're good. Now I am going to switch my bit, back to my sanding band. And I'm going to use my sanding band to refine just a little bit more. I'm going to turn my speed down to about 6,000 or 7,000 RPMs. And we're going to use this right up around that cuticle area again. So again, just tapering everything, just getting everything nice and flush down to that natural nail, down to those sidewalls. So again, I don't have any ledge or anything that's going to catch around those edges. Okay? And then we're going to go through same motions just to really help contour, smooth everything out. And yes, you could go right to your hand file to finish this, but I always feel like a little bit of filing with the sanding band here is going to really help to contour everything, get everything as smooth as I can, and then I will finish this with my hand file. But the more I can do with the electric file, especially when I'm working on myself, the easier it's going to be to do my hand filing. Okay, so again, I'm kind of turning my nail in different angles than I would normally turn an actual client. But to try to do your own nails, you guys, sometimes you have to kind of work in wonky little positions like this. Okay, so turn your hands how you need to. I'm going to grab my 150 grit file. And I have used this file before, so I've already taken off those sharp edges. But if you get a brand new file, I have my little prep file here. It's just my file that I use to take those edges off. So always make sure that you do go through, remove those sharp edges, just to make sure that you're not going to cut your skin or your client's skin. And I'm just going to start by kind of shaping up my sides here, smoothing those out. And again, you guys, because we did that preliminary shaping when we glued our tip on, we're not really having to do a lot of final shaping here. Okay, I'm going to look from that side view. I'm going to check our lower arch here. Let me come a little closer. I'm going to clean up that lower arch there, making sure that that's coming nice and straight out from the finger. And you guys, if you take a look from kind of down the barrel, notice that my left side, my left lower arch, is a little bit higher than my right side. That's okay, that's exactly where I want it to be. But by looking here and seeing that this side needs to come up, that's a good indicator for me, especially because on myself, I have a really hard time trying to turn my hand this way to really get that lower arch. So if I can look at this nail and I can file my lower arch from this view, that's going to really help, especially on yourself. Now on a client, you would be able to turn that client's hand, so you'd be able to go from here to here and be able to get those lower arches. But working on myself, I really can't do that. So that's why I will check my lower arch from this view. Still make sure that everything is coming straight out from that lower arch there, okay? All right, I think we're good there. Let me back my camera out. Again, you guys, once more, make sure you hit that red subscribe button, join our community here, get all of this great free education. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, make sure you come back and join us again. Don't worry, we're not quite done here yet. I'm still just kind of tapering in these sides a little bit. I'm going to turn my nail around, and now I'm going to look backwards down the barrel of this nail. I can see I've got a little bit of a high spot right through that side there. So I'm just going to flow my file all the way from the left side, all the way up and over to the right side, really helping to contour and take down any of those high spots, even everything out. And you guys, make sure that you're looking all the way from the cuticle, kind of rock that finger down so that you can see all the way down to that free edge, okay? Really making sure everything is nice and smooth and even. Oops. And I think we're looking good. So just kind of checking one last time all the way through everything, all the way through my sides, my shaping. Now, I'm going to turn my nails around and I'm going to compare. Again, I'm going to compare my length. Does this nail look the same length as this nail from the cuticle to the free edge, cuticle to the free edge? I think we are looking pretty good. I feel like I filed this one a little bit more narrow, so I actually may have to go back and kind of taper this one in a little bit. Because you guys, when you're working on your full sets, obviously you're not going to do, one nail at a time like this. Maybe if you're doing it on yourself, you might. But you always want to make sure that you're comparing one nail to the next so that everything is going to look the same, okay? So I think that's looking a little bit better. This one was looking a little bit wider before, but I think we're good now. Let me take that down just a hair rounder. Okay, I think we're good there. I think we are good here. Everything looks pretty similar. And you guys remember, they are sisters, not twins. So if they are not 100% identical, that is okay. It's gonna happen, and that's fine, okay? All right, you guys, so our nail is filed. We are ready to move on to the last few steps here. Now you guys notice I've got some other colors on my nails here, so we're gonna add a little bit of that foil on there. But as I'm dusting my nail off, I don't know if you guys can see this on camera or not, but I have a couple of little frayed edges of those little pieces of glitter that are kind of poking out. Sometimes when you do full covered glitter like this, you may end up filing a little bit right through that gel, and kind of those little pieces of glitter can kind of poke out, okay? I'm gonna grab a brand new, I actually have one of our file buffer combos, but this is our 180 file buffer combo. but brand new, you guys. Make sure that you're using a brand new buffer for this. Don't use one that is kind of worn down and smooth. You don't want to smooth this out too much. All you want to do is just file it or just buff it just enough to get those little frayed edges. If you try to buff this too smooth, then chances are your top coat isn't going to adhere as well as it should, okay? So just enough to kind of remove those rough edges, make sure everything is nice and even. And you guys, this is one of the reasons I love these file buffer combos, is because as I was buffing here, I was kind of looking at my nail and I saw something that I wasn't quite loving that shape. So I flipped back over to that file side and I can clean that up. And then I can hit that with the buffer one last time. So it just makes things a little bit easier. You don't have to go back and find your other file. You've got that one right here to go. Okay. All right, so now we're really going to dust that nail off. I'm going to use a little bit more, a little something underneath there. Again, I'm going to hit that with my buffer. Maybe that 180 file. There we go. Okay, we're going to use our swipe one last time. Pump that onto your brush. We're going to cleanse our nail. Cleanse underneath there, get all of that dust off of there. Now, I know you guys are going to want to start the top coat chant, but we're not quite there yet. We still have a few little sparkly things to add on, okay? So I'm going to grab our green and red foils from our Jewel foil kit. Grab those. And I'm also going to grab that little ceramic tile that I was using, okay? So we're going to grab that here in just a second. I'm going to do one more coat of my protein bond, give that nail a really good tacky surface. And when we do that protein bond, you can really start to see those glitters kind of jumping out. And you guys, I know I usually use the Ultimate Finish top coat. You usually see me use that one. But today I'm going to use our Manicure top coat. And the reason for that is putting my foils on, I want to have something that has a tacky surface to kind of set my foil down into. So let me come in a little closer. So I'm using the Manicure top coat because this is a nice thin top coat, and we're going to add a couple of layers on here. And I like to keep this a little bit thinner, okay? So if I were using, you know, maybe one of the other top coats or even the Ultimate Finish is definitely a little bit of a thicker top coat. So we want to make sure that we're using something nice and thin, okay? We're going to just pop this into the light for maybe up to 30 seconds or so. I am going to make sure that my tile here is clean. So I got a little bit of swipe. I'm going to go through and clean that off. I know I cleaned it off earlier, but just want to make sure that I don't have any tacky surface on here. And then I'm going to even grab just a dry wipe just to really make sure that is nice and clean. Okay. All right. So it's been about 30 seconds in the light. Close enough. I'm going to take a little bit of my foils, and you guys, you can use them right out of the containers, or you can use them from the tile here. Sometimes it just kind of depends on what I'm doing. Today, I actually want to kind of break these up just a little bit more. So that's why I'm going to put them down onto my tile. Come on, little guy. All right. You guys, always make sure you put your caps on these right away, because if you sneeze, they're going to go flying. So make sure to get your caps back on there. And again, we'll get a little bit of that foil back out there. Now, you see that green chunk? That was definitely a little bit bigger. So I'm going to take just my orange wood stick, or sometimes I'll just use my nail, but my nail was sticky here. So I'm just going to use end of my little tool here and just kind of pull those pieces apart, kind of break them up into smaller pieces. You can definitely use them in those larger pieces, whatever you want your design to look like. But today I think I wanted just those little bit kind of smaller pieces. So what I'm using here, this is one of our tools we had. I think this was in our, maybe one of our last rhinestone kits. And I don't know why I have that little thing on there still, but it has that kind of that wax pen end, and then it's got like the little rhinestone setter. I like to use the wax end for picking up, and sometimes I use the other end, just kind of depends on what's working that day. But just going to kind of pick these up, Now we do have that manicure top coat on our nail. It does have a tacky surface, so that's what we're going to be setting our little pieces of foil down into. So down into that tacky surface of the manicure top coat. And you guys, this, I'm not trying to be very specific with where I put these. I'm just kind of randomly placing them onto that nail. And this one may be just a little bit too chunky for what I need. So again, you can kind of break up, sorry guys, break up those little pieces, set them into that tacky surface, create whatever kind of design and pattern you like. And I think maybe just one last piece of green over here on the side. And what do you guys think? Are we liking that? Maybe just a little bit more of that red. Just a tiny little bit right here. And you guys, sometimes I do look at the nail from a different view. So we've been kind of looking at the nail like this. Turn it around. You're going to notice maybe it reflects a little bit differently from this way. Just kind of depends on what you want to see. Okay, so kind of check from different angles. Okay, now I'm going to do one last quick thing here. If you guys look from the side, do you see how some of those little pieces of foil are kind of sticking up? I'm going to grab our stamper. This is our clear stamper that was in, I think was this the Brook AB box. So I'm just going to use my little stamper here to kind of press those down, making sure that those little pieces of foil are stuck all the way flat down into that top coat. Nothing's poking out. Even if I look from the free edge, nothing's poking out. Okay, everything's going to be nice and smooth. Now I'm going to go back to my Touch Cure Light, and I'm going to just set this into place one more time. Now I know that I set that top coat into place for about 30 seconds before I put my foils on. But now that we put the foil on, by putting this back under the light, it's going to kind of freeze those little pieces of foil into place. And that way they won't move when I go to do my top coat. Okay? So just a quick, easy little hint to keep your foils where they're supposed to be. All right, oops, tap that. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 more coats of top coat. So you guys, now you can start the top coat chant in the chat, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I always do 2 coats of top coat over my foils, because this way it's really going to seal those in. It's gonna seal that foil onto the nail, and I'm not gonna feel any texture. Now the foil is very thin. I'm sorry guys. It's not wanting to focus here. It's too shiny. You guys, sometimes I think when things are too shiny, the camera doesn't like to focus. But again, I'm going to do 2 coats of my top coat. We'll cure this here first, and then we'll do our second coat. But that first coat of top coat is going to seal in those foils so that we have a really nice, nice smooth finish. And again, I'm just going to freeze that under my Touch Cure Light here for just maybe 20 seconds or so. Again, I'm keeping it a little bit away. As it cures, you can maybe move it a little bit closer or kind of come in and out of that light just to avoid that heat spike. Somebody's asking why 2 layers. Again, you guys, I do 2 layers of my top coat over the foil so that that first layer is going to really seal that foil in, and then our second coat is going to make sure that everything is nice and smooth. Okay, so just set that into place, freeze that in there. We're going to do 1 more coat of our top coat. And again, you guys, if you haven't already, get that top coat chant going in the chat. If you're new to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, join our community, and then you can join us in that top coat chant. But we always love to do that little just top coat, top coat, top coat in the chat. And that way I know that you guys are excited to see the finished nail here. So I'm going to get this. I'm trying to get around the camera here. I'm going to get that back into our light. This time I am going to give this a full 60-second cure. Now you guys, I know that when we're using our ultimate finish, I usually just do a quick 30-second freeze and then show you guys the final look. And then I actually finish curing the nail. But with our manicure top coat that we're using today, this does have that tacky finish to it. And so I want to show you how you need to remove that tacky finish. So that's why I'm going to cure this nail fully all the way through. Okay, so with our manicure top coat, this is a soft gel. Okay, so we don't want to use anything like Swipe that has acetone to it. We don't want to use that to cleanse off the tacky surface. we are going to use our Manicure cleanser, and I can't reach it with my other hand here just yet, but when this nail cures out, I will show you what that is. But it is a cleanser that is an acetone-free cleanser. So we never want to use acetone on our soft gels or gel polishes unless we're trying to soak them off, okay? So that's why we're going to use the Manicure cleanser today. This is going to cleanse off that tacky surface without dulling that shine or kind of starting to break down that top coat, okay? So again, just wiping off, cleansing off that tacky finish. And I'm always going to end my surfaces. And you guys, I don't necessarily show you this on the trainer hand, but on myself today, I'm always gonna finish with our rose oil, help to rehydrate those cuticles. See all that dryness up there? Definitely get that cuticle oil on there, rehydrate those cuticles. Keep everything nice and flexible, especially this time of year. You guys, I don't know what climates you guys all live in, but where I'm at, it's cold, I got snow on the ground, and the air is very dry. So make sure that you are rehydrating everything with the rose oil. All right, you guys, there is our final look. I think I am ready for the holidays to be here. I've got my sparkles going on here today. So hopefully this will give you guys some inspiration and show you guys how to use those tips, make them work for you. And then also using that amazing tip and jewel adhesive. You guys, if you haven't tried it yet, I know it's not available on the website just yet, but I believe it will be coming back sometime soon. So it works awesome for adhering the jewels, for adhering the tips. So you guys, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. One last reminder, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we will see you guys back next time. Thanks, everybody.